Right, so welcome everyone to part 2 of Family Friendly. We are very happy to have you guys back here. Some of you attended part 1, which was about 2 weeks ago, and some of you will be joining us for the first time today. If you weren't at the first session, no worries. We will try very hard to catch you up. And there will be some resources available so that you can follow through the conversation from when we started it 2 weeks ago. We've got a very, very jam-packed program today, but this is basically an overview on what we'll be up to today with very special guests that I'm very excited about, which Puleng will introduce. Again, we've got Dr. Puleng Makwadibe, who is the founder and CEO at Alchemy Inspiration. She is a design thinking expert and practitioner. She's a woman leader of the world, recognized globally. She's a very, very enthusiastic creative, academic, educator, and all-round great personality. And she has put this amazing session together for us to really cope through this very difficult time. So a very big welcome to Puleng.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So this is just Leanne, and soon I'm gonna leave her on her own. Hi, Leanne.
Hi, Puleng. Thank you for having me
this
on
evening?
today. I'm doing very well today. Thank you for having me.
Very well, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be with us today. I know you had a full day session today, or you're program directing something this week.
For you, I would make time.
Thank you. It really means a lot. Guys, Leanne Naidu is a friend. She's my role model. She's someone I deeply respect. She is so smart. She's so tiny. If you saw her standing up, you will see how tiny she is. You guys want to come in? Come in. You'll see how tiny she is, but she's such a dynamite. She has made me truly believe that dynamite are made in small pieces. I'm serious. She's explosive. She's so knowledgeable. She lived in London for 12 years, has worked for top 5 consulting companies in the world, has consulted for Henley Business School in the last probably 5 years. And she program directs, program designs, does the most fabulous job. I said recently, in fact, just today when I introduced her to another friend, I said, she changes lives and then she educates in the process. Yeah, education happens somewhere there, but you can never be in Leanne's presence and your life is not changed. She knows a lot about neuroscience and how your brain works. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna give Leanne exactly 15 minutes to tell us about the brain, of these dear ones. How can we leverage, capitalize, make it work? Over to you, Leanne. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you, Puleng. Thank you, everybody, for having me in your space today. Such an honor. A little bit of background. Puleng is very generous in calling me someone she wants to learn from, but I learn from her every day, and she creates these opportunities. I want to encourage you folks, please, to raise your hand if you have a question. I'm hoping that Mamadisa can enable the chat, because I'd love to get your questions coming through so that I can address your questions during this talk. I am going to go through a lot. I'm going to go through a couple of key concepts that I want to share with you for about 7 minutes, and I want to pause there and take your questions. So start thinking about some of the questions that you have about your brain, maybe some of the behavioral aspects of your kids. Maybe you're having trouble organizing. Maybe you're having trouble, maybe you're procrastinating. Just think about questions that you may have about your brain, and I'm going to go through a rapid fire round of trying to keep the energy up and answer some killer questions that you may have in a way that demystifies some of the jargon that we're fed about our brains. Context to why this subject interests me. I'm a management consultant. I worked crazy long hours in the early days of my career. I started 26 years ago. I would travel ridiculous lengths and widths of the earth to be able to do groundbreaking work. And in the process, my back broke. Literally, physically, I woke up one morning, I fell over, I woke up in hospital a few days later, and I couldn't feel my legs. I was just horizontal. So from working 21-hour days, 3 time zones in a month, out on a Monday on the red eye, back if I was lucky on the first Friday, if not the second Friday, doing some mergers, acquisitions, restructures, divestitures around the world, believing that I was making a difference. And then clearly I wasn't listening to the signs. And so God intervened and broke my back. And I was laid up for initially 10 months, and I got severely depressed. And then I had to make a decision as to, is this the life I want to accept to live, or do I want to make a difference? And I decided, made a big decision that I do want to live, but I don't want to live horizontally. I want to live with choice. And by choosing choice, in other words, that I choose to be horizontal, vertical, diagonal, if that's what I want to be, I learned and had to learn about my body. And most importantly, I had to learn about my brain. And I want to share with you some of the things that I learned in the context of this series. So there's lots that I wanted to share with you. And I hope that in time I do get to share with you. But for now, I want to focus the conversation today in rethinking. So part of Pulang's series with you, rethinking and leveraging the power of your brain. So at a very high level, I just want to share with you key functions of the brain, really, really high level. So I'm going to be talking about the frontal lobe a lot today, and sometimes I'm going to refer to it as the prefrontal cortex. So it's the part here, your forehead, and it's the part that's unique to human beings. So whereas many of the structures of the brain are replicated in other animals, other mammals, the areas that I want to focus on is the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for concentration, for planning, for judgment, for logic, for rationale. There are also parts of your prefrontal cortex which is used for your motor control, so physical hand gestures, physical movements. So one of the things I had to do is rewire my brain to use a different neural pathway to send a new signal down my spine to get my legs working again. And I physically had to learn how to walk again. You'll be surprised how much goes into learning how to walk again. But in understanding different functions of the brain, I also needed to understand the temporal lobe, which is the green section here, understanding how I processed emotions and how I felt about certain things. If I had a dull day or a down day and I didn't feel motivated to get up, then that was not going to be a good day for me. That meant I would lie horizontally for 10 hours looking out of a window and just looking at the rooftops. So emotions that drive your temporal lobe govern other sensations. So think about your senses as your sense of smell, your sense of sight as well, together with your occipital lobe, which is at the back of your brain, back here, as well as your parietal lobe, which is responsible for touch and pressure. So all of it very extrinsically and intrinsically linked to your temporal lobe, with your cerebellum, the part at the base of your neck, responsible for coordination and movement, working very closely with your motor cortex. So let's get on to the interesting things in this. The one thing I want to point out is the amygdala. The amygdala is a little pea-sized hormone in your brain, or releases hormones in your brain that trigger the fight or flight response. Why this is important for you to know is if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling stressed, your amygdala is going to go into overdrive. It is going to trigger chemicals in your brain that's actually going to shut down or close down higher order brain functions. So let's say, for example, you've got a deadline and the kids are in the room, and you've got your spouse at home as well, and you've got homeschool, and you're trying to coordinate a whole lot of things, and you're feeling stressed. Your temporal lobe is going to be triggered. Your amygdala is going to start releasing hormones inside of your brain, as well as affect your, what we call your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are sitting on the base of your kidneys, and it's going to be releasing hormones and chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol, and that's going to be impacting your body chemistry and impacting higher order brain functions, which sit here in your prefrontal cortex. preventing you from being able to organize well, to stay calm, to be able to prioritize your work effectively. So what's now going to happen when your amygdala is in overdrive is it's going to impact your cellular structure to work together. Now, I don't want this to feel like a biology lesson, but I do want you to know about 2 or 3 things about neurons. Neurons are brain cells. You're looking at 2 brain cells in this particular picture, and if you're thinking, I'm only using 2 brain cells, it's not true. We have over 100 billion brain cells. The only other thing that's comparable in this galaxy, in this universe, to the size of your brain and the potential of your brain is actually the galaxy, because we can count now that there's approximately 100 billion stars out there in the galaxy, and we've got 100 billion brain cells. It's not true that you're only using 10% of your brain, but out of habit, you might be doing the same things over and over again. So you might be using the same neural pathways or the neural connections, even though you're experiencing different situations. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Neuroplasticity is a term that we use to be able to learn new things, to be able to innovate on the things that we do know and know well. But there has to be some core components in there for this to work. So for example, the reason why these particular brain cells are connected through what we call a synaptic connection is because you have an interest. So there is a feeling, you have an interest, you're curious, maybe you're intrigued to want to learn something new. And so the way in which you learn something new is okay, I'm thinking that was just somebody not on mute accidentally. So just to recap, the reason why brain cells would want to connect is because you'd want to learn something. So these 2 brain cells are wanting to connect to create a neural pathway because you have an interest in wanting to learn something, in wanting to do something, in wanting to connect. And so these 2 brain cells are connecting through what we call a neural pathway in your brain to be able to effect the change. Now remember, you've got 100 billion of these. So guess what 100 billion looks like? Not quite that, but similar. And these neural pathways form based on a feeling that you have, based on a reflexive action you may have, based on a viewpoint, based on fear, maybe. So I want you to think about what is driving your behavior, what is driving your view, what is driving your want to learn certain things, what's driving your stress. That's going to be a key thing for us to talk about today. Here's what's so interesting about neural pathways in children. So children at birth, this would be under a microscope looking at some of their neural connections. I want you to think about why is it that children at birth or toddlers have neural connections that look like this on the extreme left-hand side of my picture? Why is it that 6-year-old kids have neural pathways that look like the middle picture? And why do you think a 14-year-old might have a neural pathway or synaptic connections that look like this? I'm going to tell you something that you may not already know, and this might surprise you. For those of you that have teenagers and you ask your teenagers, how are you doing today? How is school? And they say, good, fine. And you see teenagers eating a lot and you see them sleeping a lot and they're tired a lot. They're not very conversant with you. You get agitated with them because you feel like they're not listening. Guess what? They're going through a process called synaptic shedding. Synaptic shedding happens at adolescence, so approximately 12 to 14 years old, depending on the child, depending on a range of things. And what's happening is their brain is shedding brain cells. And that's exhausting. So not to make excuses for your teenagers and not to justify their behavior, but in a way partially to let you know what's happening is their brain cells are dying. And the reason why they're dying is to ensure that this teenage child is able to maximize and achieve peak brain function for the environment in which this child finds themselves in. So it's preparing them for young adult life and preparing them for adult life, preparing them to think about the environment in which they're in, their choice of subjects, their interests, and at the same time, what's happening is their personality is forming. So if you're thinking, isn't it a bad thing to shed these brain cells? No, it's not. because it's not like they're going to die off and never grow again. So neuroplasticity ensures that we do grow brain cells back continually. We're just growing them back to be optimal in the environment that we find ourselves in. So don't worry, it's going to grow back. Even if you're thinking you're 30 or you're 35 and you're 40 and you're feeling like you're losing your memory, don't worry about that. It's just you're feeling a heavy cognitive load on your brain cells, and you're just going to need to give yourself some time to think and to process. One of the ways to activate teenagers is to engage them in play. Children for that matter, adults for that matter. So here's what play does to the brain. Most importantly, it gets you to relax. It gets your temporal lobe to just chill out, to get really focused, and to enable your prefrontal cortex to be able to concentrate and focus in on something, to give it its undivided attention so that you can stimulate problem-solving ability. You're able to activate and improve memory and your attention span. You're able to also activate your motor cortex, get your respiratory system going, get more oxygen fed to the brain, because your brain needs water and it needs oxygen for the neurotransmitters to fire. So who of you doesn't like to drink water? Who of you is not getting your 2 liters of water a day? Well, guess what's happening? You're now asking this car to drive really fast without any petrol, without any lubrication and oil in the engine. Not fair on your brain. You've got to ensure that you've got good protein going, because protein is what's going to help your neurotransmitters fire, and you've got to be properly hydrated. That, together with adequate rest and sleep, is going to help you optimize your brain function. Last thing, and then I'm going to pause for questions. Be aware of different intelligence types. Now, for those of you that are as old as I am and have been through the dinosaur era of school, you might have been put through primarily a verbal linguistic and a logical mathematical style of learning. And if you are a creative like Puleng, who engages in visual, spatial, in music, in body movement, people interaction, nature, photography perhaps, as well as doing some deep personal reflection, then those aspects of your intelligence may have been neglected in how you were educated. And so what you may find, and perhaps some of your kids are leaning towards more creative means of engaging their intelligence type, and you're saying, no, you've got to learn this maths formula, and you've got to be able to read this language and read this book and be able to interpret it in a certain way. Well, actually, you're going to have to think about not just multiple intelligences, which was designed and discovered by Howard Gardner, but I want you to also think about how you're engaging yourselves, your kids, your spouses, as well as your line manager who might be giving you a hard time in different forms of learning styles. So I want you to think about how visually engaging are your presentations, are your communications. How are you activating the auditory senses of the brain? Now, here's what I'm doing, and you may not have noticed this, but I'm changing the intonation of my voice. I'm changing the volume of my voice. I'm changing the melody and the harmony of my voice to be able to activate learning in you. I'm also sitting down. I'm not in a very good space that allows me to stand up and move around, but I'm also trying to engage your senses in what I'm saying. I'm using examples to be able to engage you. And even though I haven't been able to activate kinesthetic learning, which is tactile learning, learning by actually doing, I'm hoping that you'll be able to engage with me in questions that you may have that I might be able to help with. So I know this was done really, really quickly. I'm going to pause at this point and ask for questions. So Puleng, I'm going to ask if you can help, and Mamadisa as well, help by asking people to perhaps raise their hands or come off being unmuting video, and just give me a wave if you have a question. I'm going to ask my colleagues to help me spot you, and I'm happy to take any more questions you may have about the brain.
Yes. So Leanne, thank you so much for sharing, as usual, deep intellectual stuff that's immediately applicable in our lives as parents, and you've also related it to our kids. And there can be lots and lots and lots of questions, but because the program is so tight,
I know.
We're not going to facilitate the Q&A session now, but if you don't mind, can you continue the engagement with the rest of us post this session today?
Of course, with absolute
in a blog. Okay, so we've set up a blog for everyone to engage beyond this session, and we'll also be sending materials around the materials that Leanne has covered. But for now, Kaelo, if you may help me, we would like you to get into pairs and reflect on what Leanne has shared with you. So if you could just get into pairs, and all of a sudden you find yourself with one person in front of you, and you have to just reflect on what is it that you took away, and how are you going to start to apply it in your parenting or in your life as an individual. So that's going to last strictly for 4 minutes. Then when you come back, we would have set up for Izzy, who's the next speaker who's going to share with us. So Kaelo, please help us and get us into pairs for 4 minutes, and after 4 minutes, we'll come back into a different session. So in your pairs, remember, what are your key takeaways? How are you going to apply the materials that Leanne has shared with you? I know it feels rushed, but isn't it, our brains are powerful enough to deal with all that information that has been shared with us within a short time. So Kaelo will get us into pairs shortly. So you may now launch us into the pairs, Kaelo.
Can you turn on my video, please? This is Izzy. I can't turn it on.
So as you get into pairs, I want you to also turn on your video so that you can see your partner. Kaelo, are you with us?
Yes, I'm just trying to accommodate the people that came in now, but everybody else is moving. Okay, so who has assigned one? Anna, are you still with me? Hi, Anna.
Hello?
Are you still with
Hello?
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
But
Can I assign you?
I'm not seeing anything yet or hearing anything yet. Are you already in presentation?
Yeah, we've put everybody in breakout rooms, but isn't there a prompt on your screen to join?
But I thought I had joined already.
Yeah, you're stuck here with me. I guess maybe it's a connection issue.
Really?
Yeah. Let me just do that.
Hello?
Hello, I'm still here.
Can I try to rejoin? Because I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, you're stuck here with me. I think you have a connection issue. Maybe if you can go out and come back again.
Yeah, that's what I was trying. That's what I was saying. Okay, let me leave and then come back.
Yeah, all right.
Hello? Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
Are you back with us? Yeah, I think the time is up for the breakout rooms. So I'm going to
Yeah, I'll
call
be
everybody
back.
back. Yeah.
Okay. I'm still not hearing anything.
Big Bo, you made it back. What happened? Wait, where did he go? No time to explain. What's the score?
Hello. Everyone will be joining us back shortly.
Hello, nzeleza la tamo.
Ke bo mang ba etsang lerata?
Oh, that's
All right,
probably.
welcome back. Kaelo, please reach out to Easy. Easy's struggling to put up her video, and she's the next speaker. So if Tech could take care of Easy, please, when she comes on the screen, then I'll hand over to Easy.
I am here.
Yes, and
Start my video.
the video. Yeah, there you are with your gorgeous background as always. I just want to hear from one person who's just going to express gratitude to Leanne and also say the key takeaway, even as they discussed with the partner. By the way, with my partner, we said it's so difficult to understand how your child's brain works, Leanne. They said, I was with Mpo, and Mpo said, it's hard. How do you know how this one's child's brain works and this one works? And I just recommended this book that I bought a couple of years back. We're putting a blog together with these resources, by the way. It's called Growing Kids with Character. Interesting enough, I think I bought it at a family-friendly event at Henley. Very helpful. and it shows you the different characteristics of your children. So it showed me how different my daughter and my son are. Very different. They respond to instructions differently. They respond to life differently. They respond to education differently. So I know when I have a set of Lego, I have to tell my son what he must build. And then I have to turn to my daughter and say, build whatever you want. And then she's gonna thrive. And my son is gonna say, what do you want me to do? What exactly is it? And it's just like, okay, all right. And it just taught me so much about their differences. And I no longer judge them because it's the way they are. I believe in the Bible. The Bible says, train a child in his own way. So find out about the child and then raise them up in their own way. Yeah. And these resources help us to understand them because most of the time they're very different. My daughter is the exact opposite of me. So sad for me that I brought a daughter into this world who's the exact opposite of me. She is so different. Even our bedrooms are different. I'm a minimalist. She loves clutter. She loves things. She loves everything all over the place. And I am a minimalist of note. And we have so many things that make us very different. And it's lovely to get to know them, to get to know how their brain works and to relate with them at that level. And Leanne will share with us her PowerPoint and other resources that can help us to learn about the brain and how we can use it, especially in this situation. So thank you deeply, Leanne. It was a short time, but you made it worthwhile. We really appreciate you. Please give clicks to Leanne. Clicks. And then generate some heat with your hands like that. Generate some warmth. And then spread the warmth to Leanne like that. So absorb all of that warmth, Leanne, and thank you. So up next, I'm gonna ask all of you to switch off your cameras.
No, don't.
Oh, okay. Easy wants you on.
Yes, please, I want you on.
You just have to check out the pretty lady with a very fancy, beautiful background that she has probably designed herself. She'll tell you more about that. Izzy is my friend. Izzy lives in Buffalo. We have known each other for years. In fact, me and Izzy and Dwayne used to sit on the board of the Creative Education Foundation in 2014 and 2015, so many years back. Yeah. And Dwayne is the chairman of the Creative Education Foundation Board, which is I think the oldest creativity and innovation foundation in the world. And we have been very privileged to have associated with them over the years. But Izzy also works with me for a company called No Innovation that's based in the US, and also Inclusive Innovation, where we do lots of work with developmental organizations and in developing countries. And we were in Barcelona together in February. We meet every year. And Izzy has a passion for creativity and education and creativity and parenting. And she has a TED Talk on parenting and creativity. And today she's gonna speak to us about parenting. She has two daughters that are in their early 20s, I think.
Yes.
Our daughters who are getting distinctions at varsity, and they are thriving. And she has done an amazing parenting job, but she's gonna tell us more about it. What are some of those questions that she asked herself as she journeyed this path of parenting, and just engage us at that level? Over to you, Izzy.
Thank you so much. For those of you who are comfortable doing that, please turn on your videos, because I am a person who really prefers to read people, to see people, to have to actually look into people's eyes and faces. And it makes me feel like I'm not speaking to myself and alone in this space. So thank you so much for taking care of me and sharing your videos. Okay, first a little bit of level setting. Pulang is making me sound like I'm some big expert on parenting. Let me just tell you a little bit about my journey so that you know how it all started. And I think, if anything, that should be the biggest takeaway for you, because my parenting journey started as a disaster. A little bit of history on my part. I grew up in a fairly dysfunctional family. My own relationship with my mother was not the best. And from the age of 10, I had been writing a journal in which I made lists of all the things that I would never do when I became a parent. Because I never wanted to forget. And now I understand why I was concerned, because I guess I anticipated the synaptic shedding. I didn't want to forget what it felt like to be on the receiving end of parenting that was destructive in many ways, no matter what the intent of the person behind it. And so I had all of these lists, and you would imagine that when I became a mother, that I would know exactly what to do, because I had these lists of what not to do. What I discovered very quickly was that actually that's not enough, because even though I had these lists of what not to do, I found myself repeating the cycles. And I was emotionally abusive. I was physically abusive with my children. And very soon my husband called me out on it. And he said to me that I don't feel that the children are safe with you. And he was right to do that. And it was a real, I've told the story so many times, I still get, it was really a low point in my life. And I was lucky that my husband supported me and I was able to seek help. And what I discovered in the process of reflection and really deep thinking and getting treated for depression was that it's never enough to say what you're not going to do. You actually have to create those alternate synaptic connections. You actually have to create the alternatives that you are going to replace those responses with. And as a result, what I ended up doing was that I was raising two very young children at that point. My daughters are only a year apart. And I was alone in Buffalo. I had no family, no support here. And it was really like being a single parent, because my husband was doing his medical residency. He was barely home. And the challenges that I faced every day were the same. You know, every single day, my daughter would give me trouble about getting ready for school, or would refuse to eat certain things, or would not be ready on time. And it would start us down the road with a really bad start to the day. And then things would just escalate from there. And I decided that I had to break the cycle. And what I did was I just started journaling, and I started writing every day, every night. I would just make a list of all the things that went wrong during the day, because it seemed like that was the only reasonable starting point. And when I looked at that list long enough, I recognized that there were certain things that really triggered other problems. So they started the domino effect. And maybe if I could change that, I would have a chance to maybe change the eventual outcome. So I focused on one problem at a time. And so I would put this problem at the top of a page. I still have the journal. And I would say to myself, okay, what are all the things that I've already tried? And I would make a list of all the different things that I had tried, because I recognized that I kept trying the same things over and over again, even though they didn't work. So I needed to get them out of my head. So put them down on this piece of paper. And then I would say to myself, what have I not tried? You know, what is something that's not on this list? And that's when the creativity piece started to come in. I started to think of new solutions. I started to think of new possibilities. And you would think that would be quick, magical, just like that. I would go and I would be able to change everything. It wasn't that easy, because these habits that we have, and the habits that we form from our history and how we were raised, are really hard to break. These are deeply embedded connections in our brain. And when we are trying to make new connections, we have to keep trying for a long time before they become pathways that our brain decides to choose. So I decided to practice some self-compassion. And eventually I started to leave myself little cues, little Post-its. You could open my kitchen drawers and you would find Post-its inside the kitchen drawers with, here is what you were going to try. Right? So that in the morning when my younger daughter was throwing a tantrum, I would open the kitchen drawer and there would be my new solution, my new option to try. And I wouldn't have to remember it in that moment. It was there as a cue. And eventually, all of these little tricks started to work. And once I fixed that first trigger, the second trigger didn't come about. And within a year of the day when my husband had told me that it was either time to shape up or ship out, I found myself at a dinner party surrounded by a group of mothers, all asking me for parenting advice. It was so unreal, this experience of suddenly discovering that I had become some kind of parenting expert. And it was overwhelming, because while I wanted to help everybody, I realized that what I was doing was creating solutions for myself. And what I needed to be able to do was to teach other people how to create solutions for themselves, because my solutions wouldn't work in your home, because my circumstances are different from yours. And that is actually what brought me to study creativity. At the age of 40, I decided to go back to university and get a degree in creativity and change leadership. My first career was that of an accountant. So you can imagine that was a big shift for me. Yes, exactly. I see you holding your head. Believe me, a lot of people did that. And a lot of people are still surprised when I tell them that I used to be a chartered accountant, auditor, no less. And so I studied creativity. And I always said, I'm studying creativity so I can help other parents. And throughout my journey, what was one of the things that I was really very clear about was that I was going to be approaching this task of a parent, of being a parent, as a learner as much as a knower. I wanted to be open to the idea of learning how to parent my children from my children. So when Pulang described, her children as being very different from each other, she has learned from them how to be the right kind of parent for each of them. So whatever strategies you eventually come up with as a parent, you're going to find that those strategies need to be different for each of your children. And that's what it means to be a parent, right? That's what it means to be a team leader. If you are in a workplace, you know that members of your team need different types of support. They need different kinds of resources. And it's exactly the same with our children. So over the last 10 years, 11 years now, so those of you who are doing the math, yes, I am 50 years old. I have slowly been refining this idea of what is it that can help parents succeed to be the kind of parents they want to be, no matter where in the world they live, no matter what the cultural context is, no matter what your family's dynamics and situation are. Because if you're like me, and I am of Asian descent, I grew up in the Middle East, I was educated in Europe, and then moved to the United States. So my cultural influences are so mixed up that absolutely no book that I can pick up from the shelf would ever be able to answer my parenting challenges. So how could we create one model that would allow every parent to experience some degree of success? And that's the question that had lived with me for a long time. And I realized one of the ways to go about answering this question was to talk to teenagers, was to talk to children, was to talk to parents. And mostly when we are talking about parenting, we think we should be talking to other parents. And we feel that we should be talking to adults. But the thing is that the other half of the parenting equation is a child. So I really approached this idea with this concept that I wanted to learn from the children as much as I wanted to learn from other parents. And so what I have finally arrived at was created with the help of 86 teenagers from around the world. So as I say, it's, it's not only parent tested, it's also child approved, because the little model that I've ended up with really has the voice of so many people in it. And if you're wondering what the model is, it's very simple. They're just 5 questions. And these are 5 questions that I hope that you as a parent will think about and really consider how you would want to answer them. The 5 questions, the first one is, what is success? Where are you headed? You know, you cannot get in a car and expect your navigation system to take you somewhere unless you have a destination in mind. So as parents, you yourself should know how you would define success as a parent. What is it that you want for your child? And that success should be a function of your values, because of course it's our responsibility to pass on our values to our children, your spiritual beliefs, your history, your culture, the world in which you live. It should also be a function of your child's abilities, the gifts that your child entered this world with, right? So your goals for one child will look very different from your goals for your other child. But these are things we need to think about, because without goals in mind, we cannot make good choices. Because every time we make a choice or a decision as a parent, we should be thinking, does this get us closer to our goal or not? So that's the first question. What is your goal? What is your destination? And if you have a child who is old enough to have a conversation with you, engage them in that conversation. Ask them what they imagine for themselves in the future and why. The why is the second question. Why does it matter? Why is it that that goal that you have identified matters so much? Why does it matter to you? And then why should it matter to everyone else on your team? That's your fellow parents, so anybody that you co-parent with, right? It should also be something that should matter to your children. If you can't sell it, if you can't sell that idea or that goal to your partner or to your children, then believe me, it will be an uphill task to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So have those conversations. These are sometimes difficult conversations to have, but they are the most important conversations that you will ever have with your child. Where are you headed and why should it matter? The third question that I have for you is, how do you embody what it is that you want to see in your children? So how do we live? How do we practice what we preach? And because I've always believed in raising children who were willing to learn and grow and constantly approach every experience with this idea that I can either grow from it or I can learn from it, I have to model that for my children. And I have to tell you, this is a little bit of bragging, but when my daughter was 16 years old, she's about to turn 21 in 3 weeks. So this is a little while ago, but when she was 16 years old, she told me that she had arranged for me to go to lunch with her friends' mothers. And I was a little bit surprised because I don't know if you can tell, but I'm something of an introvert, and I don't necessarily feel comfortable being forced into a social situation, especially with people I don't know. And I pushed back and I said, I don't understand why I have to go to lunch with women I've never met before. And she says, oh, you have to go to lunch with them because here is the agenda for all the things you have to talk to them about. And you can imagine my surprise, because here she was not just sending me out on a blind date, but she was also giving me a list of talking points. And on that list was, I was supposed to give these mothers advice on how to talk to their own 16-year-old daughters, advice on how to parent them through some challenges that these girls were having, on how to tell these mothers to manage the inner dynamics of their families. And I was shocked. And I said to her, Hannah, there is no way I can do this. Nobody died and made me, God, that I'm going to go around telling people what to do. And she says, don't you get it? You're the perfect mother. So that makes you right for this job. I almost crashed the car. I had to pull over and say to her, I'm sure every mother dreams of having her 16-year-old tell her that she is the perfect mother, but I have to push back on whether or not that can possibly be true for me. And she said to me, see, that's what makes you perfect. That you don't ever claim to be perfect. You always claim to be a work in progress, and you never give up trying to be better. And she says, you have taught me that, and you model that, and you lead with that. And to me, that was one of the most incredible moments of my journey, to realize that this practice of embodying the behavior I wanted to see in my children was paying back with such dividends. So that is the third thing. How do you embody? How do you bring it to life? The fourth question, and I believe you are all students at Henley, so I'm sure you're very good at this because it's a business school. Am I right, Pulain? Yes. Okay. So you're very good at this, and that is making a plan. Okay. You have a goal. You want to raise an independent child. You want to raise a child who makes good decisions. You want to raise a child who puts others first, right? You want to raise a child who respects their elders. There may be all kinds of things on your list. The question is, what is your plan? How are you going to get to these goals? And your plan doesn't have to be long-term. In fact, if you're a parent, I would say your plans should never be long-term, because circumstances change overnight and children evolve so quickly that no plan you make today will be good in 2 months from now. So here's what I advise people to do, and it's worked for me and seems to work for the people who try it, is you have a long-term goal, but a short-term plan. And if you want to raise an independent child, and currently your child is 8 years old, you think to yourself, all right, I want to raise an adult who is going to be an independent adult at the age of 21 or whatever. At 8 years old, what does independence need to look like? Right? What is somebody who's on the pathway to independence need to be able to do at the age of 8? And that should be what you're planning for, right? So you always have a short-term plan. You find that first milestone, which you can see and you can imagine, because you have all the players on the board right there in front of you, and you make a plan. And if you can engage with your child in the making of that plan will work. Another reason for making short-term plans is because it allows you to answer the last question. And the last question is, how do you keep evolving? What is your process for actually evolving as you are working on becoming a parent who shares this responsibility of parenting with your whole family? You don't just take it on yourself. Do you have a mechanism in place to learn from all your experiences? And there is a very simple mechanism, again, that I share with people, and it's just 3 questions in a circle. Whenever something happens, you ask yourself, what happened? Then you ask yourself, so what? Right? If this happened, what do I learn from it? What are the conclusions I can make from it? And then now what? So what will I do differently next time? Right? What, so what, now what? And when you keep doing that over and over again, I can guarantee that you will become better and better and better at the craft of being a parent. I don't know how much time I've used, and I don't want to overuse my time, but I just wanted to share that this is something that I have really, I never ask someone else to do something I haven't done for myself and that I don't believe in myself. And these are techniques that I have introduced to parents all over the world. And the beauty of this model is that it works no matter what the cultural context. And it works no matter how old your children are. And in fact, if you are sitting there with your husband or partner right now, you know, the 2 of you, if you take a stab at answering these questions, believe me, the next time you face a parenting challenge, you will be much better equipped already to start to, 1, say, does it really matter? And 2, why does it matter? And 3, what is the change I need to create in myself to change the outcome? 4, what's my plan to keep this going? And 5, how will I keep growing from this, right? How does everybody grow from this? So that's my offer, folks. I hope it was of some help, and I'm happy to take questions.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't know whether to click or to clap or to dance or to do what. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Izzy, what I absolutely love about your very elegant presentation, motherly too, because we are feeling that perfect mother as you share with us, is that I'm hearing lots of concepts that we learn in the creativity world, but you have just applied it to parenting so perfectly, because we separate this and we think these are applicable to work, to product development, to projects, and so on. But we never really think these same questions, I can take them home and apply them to solve my own problems as a parent. So thank you, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so
welcome. If we did have more time, we would engage in some questions and have a deeper conversation with you, but I'm discussing with Mamo, and like I said, we shall have more longer sessions with you. Today was just, let's have a buffet of different insights, different inputs from different people, and we thank you for honoring us with your time. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Can we please rub our hands once more for Izzy, all the way from Buffalo State?
I'm going to send mine back too.
It's morning that side of the world. In fact, it's midday now. Yeah. And she's in the middle of her day and she afforded us this time. Thank you. There's the warmth and love of all of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Guys.
Thank you. So Izzy has a TED Talk. We'll send you the links to her TED Talk if you want to watch her TED Talk on parenting and creativity. It's very interesting. And she shares some of her stories as well. And can I ask you all something, because I can? Do you mind if you go over by just 15 minutes? So instead of finishing at 6 o'clock sharp, we go to 6:15, so that we accommodate this next powerful perspective, very different perspective as well, and give her enough time to also pour her heart on us. This is my very dear friend, Michelle. Please have your camera on. Gaella, please help. Oh, there she goes. Yeah. So next up, we have Michelle. Michelle.
Hi, everyone.
How are you?
Hi. Well, I think you're showing off with your 40-year-old birthday card in your background.
Oh, yes. I show off everywhere. Even my WhatsApp status is year of 40, ever since I turned 40 in December.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I've known Michelle now for over 10 years from when I was at UCT. She's the founder and director of Think Ahead. And she does a lot of work around education and technology. Michelle has been doing incredible stuff during this COVID-19 period around education and technology. And I thought, while we're in COVID-19, why don't we invite Michelle to share some of the opportunities, free training programs, future skills for our kids, coding skills, all sorts of skills that you can get from her website, and people just sharing freely. And she's had COVID-19 challenge for kids, and she'll share lots of stories. Why doesn't she just spend 15 minutes with us and share about what Think Ahead is doing with technology and education and creativity? Michelle, over to you. And you tell us if you want our cameras on, or you're going to run your slides and we can have
I'll share, yeah.
Okay.
So thank you, everyone. And I know it's
welcome,
late.
And thank you for taking time to spend with us. Thank you.
I wasn't actually going anywhere. So I think thank you very much, Puleng, and thank you, everyone. I'm going to be very quick because I know it's late and you've been running over time. So I just want to quickly chat to you about what we're doing, Think Ahead, and the challenges we're seeing with parents during COVID-19 with a focus on technology and education. And just as I started this conversation, I just got an SMS from a friend of mine who went, wow, this homeschooling thing is tough, hey? So I'm thinking you're probably all feeling that. So Think Ahead works with schools across the country to prepare schools for the 21st century and fourth industrial revolution skills. And I think you can all recognize that we've never seen, it's been such a slow uptake of technology in schools, and yet overnight schools have been forced to look at the role of technology. And I think parents are feeling quite a lot of stress, and I think that's where the balance of the technology, the homeschooling, the socioeconomic side of the pandemic, the different child, the different teacher, the opening and closing of schools, the economy, all of that is putting a lot of pressure on the education. And we really here, Think Ahead is really here to support schools, to support parents, and to support students in this time. And I think what we've really seen, and I had the privilege of being with one parent in the breakaway, is we have to keep remembering that it's not just about catching up curriculum. We have to look at also about the full child and the full parent. It's the trauma, the social being, the online safety, everything. It's a bigger picture than when our schools are opening for the curriculum. So I'm just going to go through some of the initiatives we're running. And also I'm very, very happy for anyone to contact me or my company at any point, and just to really carry on the conversation, because digital parenting has always been tough, and digital parenting during COVID-19 is, I think, a lot tougher. I know all my friends are saying to me, like, all their screen time rules have just actually gone out of the window. So Puleng, are you happy for me just to share my screen, go through the different opportunities, and then I'm very happy for people to contact me.
Yes, please, would love that.
So what Think Ahead has been working with schools is looking at the different pillars of planning remote learning for lockdown and beyond. And if you can see this, there are different very important aspects of a successful rollout for schools. So there's the vision, there's the design, there's the team who's involved, there's the environment, there's the parent communication, there's the student learning, and there's the evaluation. And I think when we look at the student learning, this is important because I'm talking to you as parents, is what platform are you using? What is your schedule? And I think that's really important, that there must be a balance. And I think a lot of schools are getting into a panic about their fees and about certain things, and are overloading parents. And I think it really is quite important to really make sure that there's a balance and there's structure, and that your children aren't spending their whole day on their screens. Also to look at how they've been tracked, how they've been monitored, not to forget about children with special needs, and not to forget about children with remedial, to make sure that the materials that are being sent to you are addressing if your children have learning disabilities or if your children have physical needs. And then the most important thing is also the human and social connection. Make sure that you maintain that within the school environment and within the family environment and with the friends environment as well. Because I think one thing we have seen, and we have to remember, is the person, none of us are going to come out of this the same person as we went into. So when the schools open, we're going to have a different child coming into school. We're going to have a different teenager coming into school. And we're going to have a different teacher and people who are managers. We're going to have different employees. And we need to take that into account as well. And then we need to look at activities beyond the curriculum. So we must look at exercise. We must look at entertainment. We must look at social. And we must also look at different things like coding, which I'll show you. So just make sure that there is that balance. And last, but also very important, is to make sure your children are safe online, because they are spending more and more time online. So make sure that the settings are in place, that they know how to be safe on social media, that you've got family sharing, that they're using appropriate apps. And I think that's really, really important in how we create a safe environment for our children while they're being homeschooled. We've set some initiatives, and we can just go through these very quickly. We've set up a Facebook group called From Couch to Class, and this is really about, it's an open group that for teachers, and mainly teachers, but it's quite useful for parents as well, where teachers from around the world are sharing best practice, what tools work, different ideas for leisure activities, different safety ideas, different advice to parents, advice to teachers, opinions on school openings. So I think it's quite a useful thing to be part of. And Puleng will share this all with you, is the Couch to Class Facebook group. Then this is an exciting activity as well. One thing is our children are experiencing something that will be remembered in history. So we've set up a competition, which is called My Lockdown Competition. And students are encouraged, all ages, to create a video telling their story of lockdown. And they can win very cool headphones, not like the ones that I'm wearing at the moment, but very cool Beats headphones. And it's a great way of sharing with their peers, their feelings, their experiences, and documenting how this has changed their life, and how they can. And we've seen a lot from Puleng on creativity. And this is a great opportunity for our children to show their creativity. And then here, this is great. There's a whole, and I won't go into detail now, but iStore, in partnership with Think Ahead, has a whole series of virtual online training sessions. And these include creative ambassadors, on how to use your iPhone for family photography, how to use your Mac and iPad for working at home. But from our side, I Think Ahead has got 3 kinds of sessions. The first one is digital parenting, and we'll send you the link. And so how to manage screen time, how to manage security. And these are free sessions. So, thanks, Puleng. You're very good navigate here. So iStore meets digital parenting, and this is about how to set up some tips on screen time, some tips on security. Then the next one, Puleng, is iStore meets accessibility, and this is helping children with autism, with dyslexia, with hearing impairments, with visual impairments, with moving impairments, how to use the iPad and iOS to enhance their learning at home. And then the next one. And this is exciting. This is free online coding sessions for grade 3 to grade 9 students. That our session, and this is very, very cool. So they can learn how to, and I was reading an excellent article on what are going to be the post-COVID-19 skills that we need to have. And everything, technology is becoming just, even if we, so much more important. And I think this is quite exciting. So for 60 minutes, your children can go online and use Swift Playgrounds, which is an imaginary world, and they can learn the basics of coding, from block-based coding right into creating their own apps. So this is a great skill to have for them, and also something, an activity. And it's live. All of these sessions are live instruction. They're not recorded. And we'll send you the website to book your iStore Meet sessions. And then there's teacher series, which is aimed at teachers. And that is also about tools for virtual teaching and learning. And we've also got some Apple Distinguished Educators from around the world who are joining us to show what's best practice for how to use different tools for teaching and learning. So I really encourage, if I could leave you all with a few thoughts, is one is really just to don't stress about that covering the whole curriculum, create balance. Remember about the social and human connection. And also a big thing about technology is always, and I saw that Puleng and previous speaker, is about modeling behavior. Is I see a lot of parents in their WhatsApp groups and in their screen time, we need to model the behavior we want to see in our children. And also, this is a great time to join different skills. And so I encourage you to have join iStore Meet. But I really, if you have any questions about homeschooling or any questions about accessibility or parenting during this time, I mean digital parenting, not parenting in general, please feel free to contact me. And best of luck. And I hope your families stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, for your time. Thank you for sharing. And guys, I hope you got just a few pearls of wisdom. Hello, babies. Few pearls of wisdom around digital and what is happening in the digital world. Yeah. You might be wondering, this is so much around Apple. It's not all of us who are using Apple products. This was just, I invited Michelle because I wanted to give a perspective about technology, about security settings that you must put on your devices. You gotta be sensitive to that. Your kids suddenly have these devices probably all day long or all morning as they're homeschooling. Set up the right security setup to protect them. Please be sensitive around that. Be aware of the impact of digital on your kids. Limit screen time. Make sure that they have time out exercising and in the sun. So balance it out. And please, if possible, squeeze in some time for your child to learn about coding, to learn about these future skills. These are important. These are going to be critical in the future. Yes, the world beyond COVID-19 is going to be a different world. So this was yet just another injection to say, start thinking about how you can leverage digital to make you competitive as a parent, to help you out in parenting in this difficult time of COVID-19. Thank you for sharing. We really appreciate, and all warmth to you. And thank you for your time, and we'll meet you on your website. I'll definitely enroll my kids for the coding, some of the coding sessions on your side. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for including me. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have one last thing to play for you. It's just 4 minutes to inspire you, dear beautiful community, as we go off to ignite our imagination. Just one last thing. It's 4 minutes long. I feel very compelled to play this. Please sit back and enjoy it. I want to share sound as well, just to make sure that sound comes through. There we go. So it's 4 minutes. Don't leave. Enjoy this. I enjoyed it.
Tell me the one about the virus again, then I'll go to bed.
But my boy, you're growing weary, sleepy thoughts about your head.
Please, that one's my favourite. I promise just once more.
Okay, snuggle down, my boy, though I know you know full well. The story starts before then, in a world I once would dwell. It was a world of waste and wonder, of poverty and plenty, back before we understood why hindsight's 2020. You see, the people came up with companies to trade across all lands, but they swelled and got much bigger than we ever could have planned. We'd always had our wants, but now it got so quick. You could have anything you dreamed of in a day, and with a click. We noticed families had stopped talking. That's not to say they never spoke, but the meaning must have melted, and the work-life balance broke. And the children's eyes grew squarer, and every toddler had a phone. They filtered out the imperfections, but amidst the noise, they felt alone. And every day the skies grew thicker, till you couldn't see the stars. So we flew in planes to find them, while down below, we filled our cars. We'd drive around all day in circles. We'd forgotten how to run. We swapped the grass for tarmac, shrunk the parks till there were none. We filled the sea with plastic, because our waste was never capped, until each day when you went fishing you'd pull them out, already wrapped. And while we drank and smoked and gambled, our leaders taught us why. It's best to not upset the lobbies, more convenient to die. But then in 2020, a new virus came our way. The governments reacted and told us all to hide away. But while we all were hidden, amidst the fear and all the while, the people dusted off their instincts. They remembered how to smile. They started clapping to say thank you and calling up their mums. And while the car keys gathered dust, they would look forward to their runs. And with the skies less full of voyagers, the earth began to breathe, and the beaches bore new wildlife that scuttled off into the seas. Some people started dancing. Some were singing, some were baking. We'd grown so used to bad news, but some good news was in the making. And so when we found the cure, and were allowed to go outside, we all preferred the world we found to the one we'd left behind. Old habits became extinct, and they made way for the new, and every simple act of kindness was now given its due.
But why did it take a virus to bring the people back together?
Well, sometimes you've got to get sick, my boy, before you start feeling better. Now lie down and dream of tomorrow, and all the things that we can do. And who knows, if you dream hard enough, maybe some of them will come true. We now call it the Great Realization. And yes, since then there have been many. But that's the story of how it started, and why hindsight's 2020.
Because if you look at the camera...
I hope that inspired you, that blessed your heart, that you started to think about the chronicles that you will tell your grandchildren about COVID-19 in that new world that really depends on what decisions you're going to make and what things you're going to change, how you're going to use all of this information to detour choose a different trajectory for yourself and for your family, a different path of parenting, a different path of a career choice or move. And we all work together to make the world a better place. And I thank you for staying on, and I thank you for staying on even over time. And I hope it's been an inspiring time. And back to Mamudise, all of these resources are going to be put together on a website that will be, if the link will be emailed to you tonight. I'll make sure that the link is sent to you tonight. All the speakers have sent their PowerPoints. So thank you. Thank you. God bless you. Thanks, Mamo, for
We all show some love for Dr. P. Thank you. And right back at you, Dr. P. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Really hope you found the session useful. Puleng has suggested that we'll send these resources to you tonight, so we'll do that. But do have a good evening. And if you have any questions, suggestions, comments, as usual, email alumni@henleysa.ac.za.